When I researched the nervous system with the restoration of our body and mind, one area of focus stood head and shoulders above all the rest when looking at the best bang for our buck. So, i.e., what can we work on right now that will generate the biggest impact throughout our entire body, including and especially our rhythms? It is the vagus nerve. Now, I honestly feel like this could be the holy grail, and I cannot wait to talk about it from God's perspective. Welcome to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast, the show rooted in scripture and scientific research, where you will learn to achieve maximum success in your business and personal life by actually working less hours. You will conquer burnout, find your purpose, restore your passion, and be more productive than ever. If you think it's too good to be true, it's not. It's exactly how God designed our bodies. And the science of our rhythms has actually been around for over 7 decades. But no one has ever looked at it through a biblical lens until now. Hi, I'm your host, Liz Bagwell, a published scientist turned healthcare executive, wife and mom of 3, who burned out at the top and found my purpose at rock bottom. Follow along with me as I leave everything behind in pursuit of helping others restore God's design for their personal lives and businesses. This will be raw, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it's like when you stop running and start living in pursuit of what truly matters. Together, you'll cultivate a more balanced, joy-filled life, gaining the peace and freedom only found when leaning into God's design for your mind, body, heart, and soul. Welcome to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast. This is episode 7, which kicks off our series on restoration of the body. The last 3 episodes, we focused on restoration of the mind and concluded our series with my very own therapist, Dr. Barbie Hessel. During that series, I discussed restoration of our minds, both from a scientific and scriptural perspective, sharing ways to practically restore your mind and why it's so critical both for your generation and generations to come. In this episode, we are going to introduce the nervous system, which connects the brain to the rest of the body, as well as biohacks for both resetting and adding capacity to it to build resiliency. In following episodes in this series on the body, we will have an entire episode dedicated to sleep. I cannot wait. As well as an entire episode literally chock full of nothing but body biohacks. It's going to be great. So in doing my research for this episode, boy, did I geek out. I had several aha moments followed by lots of, what about this? What about that? I'm going to research this. I'm going to research that. Has anybody thought about this? I get really excited about science, if you can't tell, but I really feel like biohacking of the nervous system could legitimately be its own topic for an entire podcast. And maybe somebody needs that idea, or maybe I'll do another one. I will be pulling together today the highlights of what I feel like are the most meaningful and impactful for you from all of those sideload, but still very brilliant research studies. And then we're going to take a look at what I feel like God says about our bodies to tie it all together. As I start every new series in a new area, it is important for you to start with the end in mind. What do you want out of this newly restored body that you hopefully will have at the end of the series? Before we dig in, I want you to take a moment and do a quick, quiet inventory of your body. Scan it, figuratively speaking, and start with your head and go all the way down to your toes. What needs help? What parts of your body need some intervention? If you are able to right now, make a list. If you are driving, please be safe and just visit this list later, but continue to listen in. You may have one area of focus, or you may have 15. But no matter how big or small your number is, that's okay. And maybe your number will grow over the next several months. That's honestly to be expected, because the more you listen to your body and the more in tune you are, the more areas you're going to go, you know what? I could tweak that a little bit. But congratulations on the first part of restoring your body, and likely the most important, listening to it. It's so important. And I honestly feel like I've never heard this before. So I might be the first one to say this, but I feel like listening to your body is a discipline. I've had to listen to it over and over again over the past several years. And it's a discipline. It's something that you have to work at and you get better at when you practice. But listening to it doesn't mean that we have to fix everything. I don't want you to get overwhelmed and especially fix it all at once. It is simply, right now, especially, we're simply acknowledging the parts of our physical body that need our attention and maybe some recalibrating. Before we jump into how we prioritize that list, I want to spend the next several minutes taking into account and talking about several key definitions and how our mind and our body communicate. Okay. So Dr. Barbie talked in the last episode a little bit about our nervous system. That's like her big focus area. And that's really what the majority of this episode will be. The nervous system, by definition, is what connects our mind to our body. In simple terms, it is made up of a big network of wires, so to speak, that provide two-way communication, both from the brain to the body and from the body back up to the brain. There are two parts that make up the nervous system, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The basic workings of our nervous system depend a lot on tiny cells called neurons, which are so cool. And I might share a cool story at the very end about neurons. But the brain has billions of them, and they all have many specialized jobs. Okay. Actually, I think I'm going to pause here and talk about a really cool thing about neurons just because I'm nerdy and I think they're really cool. The episode will not focus on them at all, but I want to tell you something really cool about them. So I learned about this several years ago. And if you are anything like me and not like my husband who rarely has this, I have deja vu all the time, like all the time. And it really freaked me out growing up because I thought to myself, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on in my brain? Because you can really feel deja vu in your body. If you've ever had deja vu or experienced it a lot, you know what I mean. And what I learned several years ago, and there might be new data on it, but going, several years ago, this is what I learned. When you create a memory, think about that movie. I don't have the name of the movie out in front of me, but if you know that Pixar movie about memories and our emotions, you remember those little balls, the core memories? So what actually happens is every time we make a memory or we are in a certain situation, our brain fires a new neuron. And all the memories that we have, including like the smell of it, all those things are kind of housed within that neuron. So basically speaking, when we have deja vu, what actually happens is that our brain, instead of firing a new neuron and creating a new memory, it actually goes and thinks you're back in that place and fires the old one because you're in such a similar place. And so that is what gives your brain and your body that feeling of that eerie feeling of, oh my goodness, I've been here, because it's literally firing that old neuron, that old core memory, even though you're in a new situation. So anyways, I totally went off topic slightly, but our neurons relay information to each other through a complex electrochemical process, making connections that affect the way that we think, we learn, we move, and we behave. So going back to kind of that, the deja vu example, you can literally feel it in your body. It's this really weird, like I've been here before. What is this? And it's because that that old neuron firing, thinking that you're back in that old place, but you're really not. Okay, that's enough about neurons. That's all I'm going to say. That's probably the most complex I'm going to get from a scientific standpoint. But okay, going back to the central nervous system. So our central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. So we talked about the mind before. But for today's episode, I want to focus on the parts of our nervous system that affect our body and that we have some element of control over. That, my friend, would be part of the peripheral nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. Now, don't be fooled that just because this system is called autonomic and controls so many processes within our bodies that we do without even thinking about it. that we don't have the ability to positively impact them, because we do. And we can positively impact them and have different outcomes, even though our body is doing them without us even knowing it. Okay. When our nervous system is not optimally functioning, our entire body is affected, due in part by the cascading dysregulation that our body's processes go through when we are out of rhythm. So if you remember back to the last episode, Dr. Barbie talked about this and how it can affect our bodies, how stress can affect our bodies, and how being out of rhythm can affect our bodies and our immune system, so on and so forth. When I researched the nervous system with the restoration of our body and mind, one area of focus stood head and shoulders above all the rest when looking at the best bang for our buck. So, i.e., what can we work on right now that will generate the biggest impact throughout our entire body, including and especially our rhythms? It is the vagus nerve. Now, I honestly feel like this could be the holy grail, and I cannot wait to talk about it from God's perspective. But let's define the vagus nerve. So I have to be honest, I was not expecting this to be what I thought I would focus on specifically. And so when I looked at the research, I was like, again, I was totally geeked out and super excited about it and its potential and just how easy it is for us to impact it without having to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or spend, years and years in therapy. Like, these are things that we can do like today, tomorrow, that will make your body and your brain feel better. Okay. So let's define the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our bodies. It connects our brains with many of our organs, such as our neck, chest, and abdomen. Some researchers call it the body's information superhighway. It sends signals from our brain to all our other organs in our bodies. However, it is in constant communication with our heart, lungs, and gut. And it is responsible for, guess what? Regulating our body's stress response and immune system and your body's inflammatory response to disease. So it's huge. Okay, here is my favorite part. And the thing I geeked out about the most is that the vagus nerve carries a tone or a vibration. Like, you're like, okay, why is that so cool? So it is considered the vagal tone. So a mother passes on her vagal tone. Oh God, I'm thinking about myself. Both my mom giving me her vagal tone and then me giving my kids my vagal tone. Ugh, but we'll get to that in a minute. A lower vagal tone can indicate high levels of anxiety and depression. A higher vagal tone typically indicates higher levels of serotonin and dopamine. So the higher the vagal tone in general, the calmer the individual. Okay, here's the most fascinating part. The vagus nerve can be toned. It isn't something that's fixed that, yes, you're born with what your mother gave you. My kids are born with what I gave them. Yes, it's not fixed for life. It is something that can be toned, and it can be toned through easy things like breathing, humming. That one was interesting to me. Singing, exercise, cold showers, and laughter. Like, laughter can totally be medicine. I could spend an entire episode on each of these, seriously. But for today, I'm going to spend time speaking on two of them that I personally have been working on and noticed significant benefits. Those two are breathing and cold showers. All right, I'm going to take a minute. You can hear it in my voice. I'm excited. So before we get into this, I do not want you to panic. What I don't want you to think is that this is one more thing that you have to add to your daily routine that is already jam-packed. Remember when I said in episode 1, I cannot grab my own face back on that Southwest flight in 2012, but I could kind of metaphorically grab yours. Well, I'm doing it again. I'm metaphorically grabbing your face very gently and lovingly in my hands. And here's what I want to tell you. I need you to reframe the way that you are thinking about things, especially when it comes to caring for yourself. This should not be one more task on your to-do list. These are practical ways that will generate massive capacity within your nervous system to better handle stress and trauma. These are ways that if you do them to the point that they become second nature, you will, without a doubt, live a more peaceful life and, dare I say, a longer one. Okay. So I've mentioned before, yes, I'm a scientist, but even for me, these studies that I have found that show a correlation between breathing and the restoration of our ultradian rhythms blew me away. Okay. Looking at the specific ways that we breathe, and a lot of research papers focus on yoga specifically and the practice of breathing within yoga and the movement of our bodies, and how when done in certain ways, specific ways of breathing open up our brain hemispheres to more oxygen that actually restore and heal our brain. Isn't that cool? I'm going to link the research paper in the show notes for those of you that really want to dive in scientifically. But breathing is also believed to be an impactful way to restore your ultradian rhythm. So cool, super cool. I personally have been doing breathing exercises to help me fall asleep for years and years. And I've been doing a lot of breathing exercises with Dr. Barbie as well. And I have previously linked her focal meditations that include some of those breathing exercises. And I'll do that again in the show notes as well. But as someone who has spent the majority of my life unable to fall asleep or sleep well, when I learned the right way to breathe to help me fall asleep, it was life-changing. I have actually even taught my own children, even as young as 4 years old, some of the breathing techniques that Dr. Barbie taught me, and they work so well on them. Going back to another way, breathing, that we can help to restore our body and our brain, yoga. So just this year in 2023, so this is May, as I'm recording this, it's May 10th. And I started yoga back in January of this year, going regularly several times a week. I can 1,000% attest to this personally on a practical level. So not even just a scientific level, but as somebody that's been practicing yoga on a regular basis, it's been life-changing. So I know that yoga studios can be expensive, but there are, in places like our yoga studio, I think there's like a weekly class that's free for the community. So searching out ways, regardless of what resources you have in your communities or online. I know there's lots of YouTube exercises and for kids. I'm going to do a quick little side note. What is it? It's called Cosmic Yoga for Kids. I've been doing that with my kids for years, and I love the things that she does to help them fall asleep. It really helps reset their nervous system and calm them down. So I promise you it works. Okay. Next, cold showers. My husband literally shivers when I mention this and rolls his eyes, but I swear by it, you guys. So I've already gone into way too much science for today. So I'm going to keep it simple, but cryotherapy, also known as cold therapy, the modern day version of this unique treatment began in Japan around the late 1970s. And it helped people that suffered from severe cases of arthritis, muscle recovery, and inflammation. The benefits of cold therapy, though, have been documented all the way back to Hippocrates in 400 BCE, who was quoted to say cold therapy can relieve fatigue. And it's true, I promise you. When I take a cold shower in the morning, now, when you look up cryotherapy, you will see that it will stimulate the rest and reset part of our brain and our bodies. You would think that that would make you sleepy. But actually, when I do a cold shower in the morning, I wake up way more than I do when I have a nice hot cup of coffee. You can gradually go into it and try it like a little bit at a time, make your shower like a little colder, and then the next time a little colder. But I want to tell you a little bit about the science behind cryotherapy and then what it does. So, during cryotherapy, the body is exposed to very, very cold temperatures. I'm not going to tell you the exact numbers because you'll freak out, but only for a few minutes at a time. And over the course of a minute or two, the cold temperatures trigger the body's survival mechanisms. It sounds like trauma, but from a nervous system perspective, it activates your vagus nerve. And when your vagus nerve is activated, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is the one that is the rest and reset. And the rest and reset nervous system, when it's activated, it actually reverses the fight or flight response of the sympathetic nervous system. So that was a lot of words and probably a little too scientific, but all you need to know is that it helps to reverse the effects of stress on our bodies. So let's look at this from God's perspective for a minute, because I think it's key, of course, in every discussion. So if God made this the longest nerve in our body, the one that has a huge impact, right? Remember, to our nervous system, to our immune system, to our body's inflammation response, and our stress response. It connects our brain to key functions of our bodies. Don't you think we need to take extra care of it? And use the knowledge that we now have and more, if you want to dig in further, to our advantage and use it for healing. Again, I don't want you to think about this as just another thing that you have to take care of. It'll do its thing, because guess what? It will. It'll do its thing without you even acknowledging it. But if you look at it from God's perspective and use it the way that He intended it to be used, not just letting it do its thing, but actually working on it. Like, I feel like I can see God in heaven going, come on, guys, you should have figured this out by now. I made it this way for a reason. Hello, use it to your advantage. Help yourself here. Maybe it's just me. I'm weird like that. But I'll dig in more scripturally in the next 2 episodes. But I really feel like from God's perspective, when we think about it, when we're tying it in, both from His perspective and scientifically, there's something to be said for that. God made it that impactful for a reason, right? There's all of these people that have discovered all these amazing things about it for a reason. So let's use them to our advantage. Don't look at it as just, oh my gosh, it's this extra thing. Use it as, hey, this is how I'm going to biohack my body and get it back to the way that God made me. To close us out of this episode, I want us to revisit your list that we discussed earlier. What parts of your body need attention? I'm going to go ahead and get the obvious out of the way. So I need you to think of me as taking my hands off of your face, your sweet face, and visually stepping up on a soapbox. Okay. I want to help you prioritize. And first things first, if you do not get a yearly physical, get one. Can you tell my tone has changed? The tone of my voice? This is like the tone of the voice that I use with my family when I'm like telling them, demanding that they do something. I'm sorry. I need to change that. But I beg you. And I want you to do it again next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that, et cetera, et cetera. It could absolutely save your life and is a beautiful first step in taking care of your body and showing your children and grandchildren how to take care of themselves. Remember the airplane analogy? You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can put it on someone else. Secondly, get your cancer screenings done on time every year. I think if I could have a quote on my gravestone one day, I'd pick it to be this one, like loving mother of 3 children and wife too. Well, and get your cancer screenings done. I'm sorry. I have an immediate family member who neglected to do this because of how stressful their job was. They are a successful business person. They knew something was wrong, but they just had too much work to do. They had too many people relying on them that they felt like they just could not get away and get this taken care of. Now that person, who would like to remain unnamed, but means the absolute universe to me, has stage 4 cancer. And if they had gone just a few months or a year earlier, it would have likely been like a stage 2, very curable. So, all of that aside, number 1, go get a physical every year. Number 2, if you qualify for screenings, please do your cancer screenings and get them done on time. So now that we've got those out of the way, next is up to you, but I'm going to say a few things that hopefully will help you to prioritize the rest of your list. Okay. So, number 1, focus on one area at a time. I'm saying that unless there are 2 or 3 areas connected that you must focus on, like, for instance, cardiovascular health and lungs would be a good example. But I want you to remember that you cannot boil the ocean. So take your list. If you have it in front of you, take a look at it. You can pause this if you need to, but draw a number 1 beside the one thing that will have the greatest impact on your overall peace, happiness, and longevity of your life. Okay. Then I want you to break that area down into teeny tiny bite-sized steps. And to quote the amazing Mel Robbins, if the step feels too overwhelming, break it down even further. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So say one of your things is seeing a therapist to help with your stress level. What would those steps look like? First, you need to look up someone in your area that would take your insurance, right? If that feels too big, one step for one day might be, I'm going to find my insurance card. The next day, it might be, I'm going to take that insurance card and I'm going to place it on my desk. The next day, that next step might be, I'm going to research the best websites to find someone to see. The next day, that step might be, I'm going to go on that site and type in my zip code with my specific insurance. The next day, it might be calling that person, and so on and so forth. Hopefully you get the idea. But what I want you to do this in every single area. And you can do it all. You can write everything out all at once, or if you just want to take your number 1 priority and do that, and then take the number 2 priority, and then do that when you're done with all of number 1, however you see it best fit. And this could take months and months. And that's okay. And that's honestly to be expected. But I don't want you to get discouraged. Though it would be amazing for it to be all overnight, it didn't take us overnight to get here, did it? But even just one simple step, like setting out your insurance card on your desk, is one step closer to restoring your rhythm. So please pat yourself on the back. I hope you found all of this helpful. I could seriously talk about it for hours if you can't tell, but please remember to reach out and connect with me. It is my ultimate favorite thing to do in the world, and I'd love to help you and get you plugged in with the right resources. Come back next Wednesday for our episode entirely devoted to sleep, the science of it, and the zillion biohacks to improve it. Did you know that one of the biggest secrets to come out recently, and it's really not even just a secret, it's a true biohack to living a longer life, and this is scientifically proven, because otherwise I would not be saying it, is human connection, that true human connection that we all long for. So let's really connect, and I mean it. I cannot wait to go on this journey with you and help discover and restore your individual rhythm and life. You can find me on Instagram at LizBagwell7 or head on over to my website, rhythmrestoration.co, that's .co, not .com, where I share all things life, family, other biohacks, and simple ways to lean into God's true design for your life. It would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a friend, family member, or coworker, or all three, and if you left me a review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you truly from the bottom of my heart for listening to the Rhythm Restoration Podcast. All my light and love, Liz.